electrolytes, hamstring cramps, and being able to master the sleep cycle on today's episode. Hey guys, welcome to MotoFit TV episode number 21. A bit of a change of weather here in Perth. We've had heaps of hot weather lately and I've been cooking in here when we've been doing these videos, but now changing over to actually being cold, which is a little bit of a change. And also got out on the mountain bike on the weekend for a bit of a ride. So I went up to Kalamunda, went up to the goat farm, which is up near Greenmount Hill for those of you in Perth. And did a bit of riding, which was sweet because normally it's a bit dusty, but had a little bit of mud. So a bit of cleaning up to do after riding rather than just putting the bike back in the garage when I got home. So that was a little bit of extra work, but that's all right. But yeah, it's great having a little bit of cooler weather. So before we get into, we've got a few questions to smash through on today's episode. So our traditional episode. Scott Platt asks, hey Andrew, I'm an enduro rider and have a hydration question. I know you have said previously that we should all hydrate with water, and I do, but is there any other fluid we should use, especially on race day? Awesome, Scott. So in terms of hydration, electrolytes are very important. So electrolytes are what help our muscles to be able to contract and relax, okay? So it's very important that we have those electrolytes because that helps us to actually retain our level of hydration, okay? So water retention. We don't want to be just taking in a shit ton of water and having all that water being flushed out. So in terms of drinks, it more comes down to, or a big part of it is food. You want to make sure that you're eating good quality produce, fruits, meats, vegetables on a day-to-day basis because these are the types of foods that are going to be high in sodium, high in potassium. Okay, which are the foods that we want to be able to take in to help with our level of hydration. So yes, electrolytes are very important. But you also want to make sure that you are taking in plenty of water. So with our guys, we work on roughly 40 mils per kilo of body weight each day. So it is quite a bit of water, but you want to make sure that that water is actually being retained and held onto. And the only way that that's going to be held onto is if we've had the right type of diet. If you're eating shitty types of foods, then we're going to have problems. So you need to be eating good quality foods to maximize this level of electrolytes. The other thing that we use with our guys is coconut water. So coconut water is something that can help to replenish electrolytes as well, except it's in natural form. So you want to make sure when you're using this, using coconut water, not coconut juice. Okay, like things like Powerades and Gatorades are full of sugar and additives and preservatives, and we want to minimize those as much as possible. We want to maximize natural sources. So coconut water is a great source that you can use on race day and even before race day as well, in conjunction with training and practicing as well. Mark Jason asks, I sometimes get hamstring cramps after a few laps. I stretch first and still happens. Awesome, Mark, great question. So if you're getting hamstring cramps, this is a couple of things. So there's a whole shopping list full of things that it could be, but there's going to be a few that I'm going to predict are the main cause. So first of all, it could be hydration. Maybe you're not getting enough water. Maybe you're not retaining enough water. Maybe you're not eating properly, so you're not retaining enough water. So it could be diet, could be water intake, the amount of water. But what I'm going to lean towards is glute activation. So your glutes are your ass, okay? The big parts of your ass cheeks. So they're massive powerhouse muscles that work on hip extension. So pretty much what that means is when you're sitting on the bike, your hips are closed. And then when you stand up straight, so your legs are locked out, okay, and you're standing up straight, your hips are open. The glutes help to control that extension in the hips, okay, moving up and down. Now, a comment for people in day-to-day life, riders and racers especially, their glutes turn off. Because of all the sitting we do, because of the sedentary lifestyle we have compared to what we're actually designed for, our glutes turn off and they don't work. So these big powerhouse muscles are now not working to be able to extend our hips, to open our hips up. So what then happens is we start to use our lower back and we start to rely on our hamstrings more. So in this case, for you, one of the areas that could be holding you back is that your glutes aren't working properly. So when you're moving around on the bike, the hamstrings are doing all the load. They're under a heap of stress and the glutes aren't doing anything, okay? So we wanna make sure that we get those glutes working. So things like glute bridges, hip thrusts are some things that you can work on to get your ass working. And this will help to take the load off your hamstrings. So a lot of riders and racers do have tight hamstrings and they do stretch their hamstrings, but it's pointless in terms of just hanging at end range and trying to make the muscles longer because they'll just go back to their normal size. What you need to be able to look at is, okay, why are your hamstrings tight? Why are they cramping? Okay, and then we need to be able to dig a bit deeper. So for you, what I would recommend is being able to work on your glutes, glute activation. You can do even like monster band walks to be able to get your glutes working. There's a whole heap of exercises there in terms of glute activation to help get them working so we can take the load off the hamstrings. The other thing that you'll find is that by activating the glutes, it takes the load off the hamstrings. They don't work as hard, so you also become more flexible. So you will notice that the level of flexibility through your hamstring is going to be a lot better when we can get those glutes working as well. Paul Desborough asks, my daughter Jazz is doing her cardio and weight training at 9 p.m. at night. Is this okay to do so late in the evening? She also charges up with a pre-workout drink. Will this affect her sleep patterns? Any advice would be appreciated. Awesome question, Paul. So there's a couple of things to be able to focus on there. Now, number one, training at 9 p.m. at night is not optimal, but it's not really too big of a drama either, okay? Like obviously I understand people have work lives and they do things outside of riding and racing, which is cool. That's what helps to get them to riding and racing in the first place. So they need to fit their training in after hours. So although it may be optimal to train at particular parts of the day and not so late at night, we're getting it done, then that's what we have. If that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do. But what we can do is maximize what's happening either side of that. So in terms of sleep, if you're having a pre-workout, so pre-workouts are full of caffeine, full of sugar, full of a whole heap of shit that are designed to get you pumped, get you going, okay? It's like an artificial adrenaline rush, okay? It triggers that fight or flight response. So yes, you may train harder, yes, you may push harder, but you gotta go back a step and go, okay, why do you need that pre-workout in the first place? Why does Jazz need that pump, that boost to be able to get into her training session? And that might be because she feels tired and fatigued and doesn't feel like training. So that comes back to sleep again. So we get stuck in this vicious cycle because we take the pre-workout, it gets us amped up, we train hard, and then that affects our sleep. We sleep poorly, we come to our training session the next day, we feel like shit, we take the pre-workout again and we become more and more reliant on pre-workouts and artificial stimulants to get us going rather than tuning the body in correctly, okay, and getting it to recover optimally. So the pre-workout, because of all the sugar and the caffeine in it, yes, it will affect your sleeping patterns. So for Jazz, there's 4 stages of sleep. Okay, the first 2 stages are the lighter stages of the sleep cycle. Okay, so this is when you're asleep, but your body's not 100% relaxed. It's still a little bit tense. Okay, this means that you can still wake up. So you've probably been sleeping and someone like talks to you or taps you and you wake up. Stages 3 and 4 is the deepest stages of the sleep cycle. So in this stages 3 and 4 is where we get our best quality sleep, where our most recovery is done. However, you have to have gone through stages 1 and 2 to get through stages 3 and 4, and you have to do them without waking up the whole time. So when we have, so those stages 3 and 4 is where the body is most relaxed, where it gets its most level of recovery, and most efficient at being able to get back to 100%. So we want to maximize getting into those stages 3 and 4. When we take caffeine and we have a whole heap of sugar, our body tends to stay in those stages 1 and 2. It's had all these stimulants that it has trouble being able to completely turn off. So we tend to stay in those stages 1 and 2. So although you may be asleep for 8 hours, you may have been in bed for 10 hours, you're not actually getting into that deep sleep, which means that it looks like you've done a lot of sleeping, but your sleep hygiene is fairly poor. So you haven't been able to maximize getting into those stages 3 and 4 where most of that recovery is done. So my first recommendation before doing anything else at all is to remove the pre-workout and focus on getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. If that means putting training back an hour, do that. If that means training at a different time, do that. If that means getting to bed earlier and making that more of a priority, then being able to work on that. You need to be able to work on optimizing the recovery. So a lot of riders and racers get caught up in focusing on what they can do to be better instead of focusing on what they can do to recover to be able to be even better the next session. So we need to focus on making sure that we can get her back to 100%. So first of all, scrap the pre-workouts. and focus on good quality nutrition. Focus on carbohydrates, fats, proteins, mapping them out correctly, fueling them correctly with training, and then being able to maximize that sleep, because you don't get results from training, you get results from the recovery from training. So it's very important that you put the time, the effort into your recovery exactly like what you put into your riding, your racing, and the actual training itself. The recovery is just as important, if not more important, than the actual training itself. So that's what I would recommend for her to work on, Paul. So I hope that gives you a bit of a path in the right direction. If you guys have any other questions for our episode next week, feel free to post in the comments below. What's one question that I can answer for you on the MotoFit TV show that's going to help you with your riding and racing over the coming weeks or over the coming months this season. Look forward to hearing from you guys, and I will speak to you then. See ya.